Welcome to episode 2 of The Faithful Athlete. Today we have a special guest, Kadyns Rolleri. So thank you, Kadyn, for being here. I will say it has been a chaotic time trying to get everything working. So the Lord must have something that he wants to speak today. So why don't you give us a little background about yourself?
Okay. Hi, I'm Kadyns Rolleri. I've gone to Bret Harte all 4 years. I grew up here and lived here my whole life. I've been involved in sports since I was in 4th grade, and my family and I have also gone to many churches. My mom has a little own Bible study group that she always does, and sometimes my sister and I will join her. So yeah, we've been pretty involved around this community. Yeah.
Awesome. And you are what? A senior this year,
Oh,
getting
yeah,
ready to graduate?
I forgot to mention that.
What's
I'm a
happening
senior.
after high school for you?
I'm going to go to a 4-year university. I just decided I'm committed to Point Loma. I will be running there for them and majoring in kinesiology. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm excited to see where sports and everything takes me.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's awesome.
Yeah. But, yeah.
Well, we have some questions for you that our
Oh, really?
fellow FCA members would like to ask you. And the first one is, what does your pregame ritual look like?
My pregame ritual. Probably meal-wise, we always did a little meal with the whole team. So it honestly wasn't the same meal every time. So it'd be sandwiches one time, pasta, salad. But usually I would catch us at the end of the season. We would all come in a circle and pray. And it was really cool because I know that not a lot of girls on that team experience that all the time. So watching everyone just go together and bow their heads, and I led the prayers a couple of times, and just watch us all come out there praying as a family and then playing on the court as a family. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorite moments from all the season, watching you guys. I was blessed to be able to help you guys out during the postseason in basketball this year.
Mm-hmm.
You guys just won the state championship, which is crazy. But that was one of my favorite moments, is when I got a text from Rachel of a picture, because I wasn't able to go to Golden One because we had a track meet. This was for the section championship, and there was just a picture of you guys all on that big court, huddled around each other, praying, and it was so cool.
Yeah, I think that it was really special because we all really wanted this as a team, and especially for some of the seniors where it was our last year. We've played with these girls since we were in 6th grade, and we're on AAU teams, and just getting that moment together right before that big game. I think it really was heartwarming and very wholesome. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking on your sports that you played, give us some background, because you're a multi-sport athlete, right?
Yes.
So give us a background on which sports you have participated in.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so going all the way back into elementary school, or middle school, I guess. I've done track since I was in 4th grade, and I started basketball my 5th grade year and got moved up onto the 6th grade team, which Isaac coached
For my senior project.
for his senior project. I was his little
Forgot
hamster,
about
I guess. Your little test.
Guinea pig?
Or guinea pig. And then from there, I've played basketball all the way up till my senior year, as well as running track. I played volleyball one year, 7th grade. I was the 13th player.
How was that?
Oh, I got good at one point, but
Not a fan.
no, I actually enjoyed volleyball. It's just the matter of fact that I never played before, and I just joined the team, I was 13th player, so I was the last option. Which is
Someone's gotta be the 13th
hey,
man.
exactly. I took it for the team. But no, and then my freshman year, I joined cross country mid-season, which I originally was not planning on running cross country, because when I thought of it, I was like, oh, cross country, that's a lot of running. So I wasn't sure about that, but then I thought, hey, I'm not doing anything during the fall. It's a good way to stay in shape for track. So I gave it a shot, and I ended up loving the team, and the sport grew on me, and here I am. We just went to state this year. So
Yeah. You it seems like a lot of your stories in your childhood, kind of all comes around one thing, and that's team. I hear you talk about team a lot, how
Oh.
important the team is. What is that like? Like, how valuable to you is being a part of a team?
To me, it personally means a lot. Like, I know that running is more of like an individual sport, but like I always grew up like my dad would always tell me there's no I in team and like all that stuff, which I know there's a lot of people that know that saying. But like even I forgot to mention I played softball when I was younger, but like even the individual sports, I just feel like the more you bond as a team, the more you enjoy it, and like the more like you see like your teammates like trying to motivate you and like believe in you and have that confidence, it like reassures you almost, and it's like gives you that extra boost to like what you feel like you didn't have, and it's like I always like to be that person as well, so it's like the more that I have a connection with my teammates no matter like what the sport is, like I just like I like to give them that reassurance and like just see that like impact their lives and how they reflect it.
Awesome. Do you think that played a big part in your guys' basketball state championship this year?
Definitely.
Team?
Especially with like the coaching and everything, so I think that just like the whole like at first we didn't know how the season was going to go at all, but like when we knew that we had a new coach and stuff, we were a little bit like scared. We're like, oh, like another coach, here we go. But when we found out it was Jeff and like how much he believed in us, even when we didn't believe in ourselves, I feel like it was just like it made a difference on every single player. Like I watched like so many of our players like develop like into such a stronger player and like be able to like overcome so many adversities, and like the way that they put out all those problems and like reflected it onto the court, like you could just really see how much like it changed them. And like I think that just having every girl believe in each other and just know that we had our backs, like each other's backs no matter what, it really like made us feel very comfortable on the floor together.
What was it like in that locker room after you guys lost in the section championship? Right, so you're the number one seed. You go in there to Golden One, and you guys end up losing, right? What was that like, and how did you guys recover from that, and then go on a extremely dominant run in the state playoffs?
I think a lot of the girls could agree with like how like it did not feel like we like were done. Like we knew we still had a lot more to go through, and like I remember Guy Dossie, who was interviewing like a few of the girls, and like at one point he asked me, he's like he asked me if I was ready for like the next game and all that stuff, and I said yes, like, and I think that we'll be back, and I said that, which was really funny because then we ended up coming back again to Golden One.
You guys wrote on the clipboard. I remember
exactly
that first practice back when you guys were starting the state run. Jeff walked in and the clipboard had the date of the state finals game circled, and he didn't erase it, and sure enough, you guys did it.
I think that like we all just like didn't let it like affect us like the way that most teams would. I think we just were like, okay, we lost, but like we learned from it. We know what to expect. We're gonna better ourselves by doing this, and we kind of just like knew what was coming. Like we knew that it wasn't over for us, and we knew that there was a lot more that we could like go for.
You guys had some strong leaders on that team, because I know that some people on that team were not as confident going forward. But you know, you and Araya were able to really lead the others, you know, through that.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about school, managing school and sports as a senior in high school. And I cannot imagine what it was like to manage school while going on that playoff run, you know, because you guys had interviews to do, you had this, you had that. It was wild.
I mean, it's always going to be hard, and you definitely need like that time management and like just that balancing skill, I guess. But for me, I feel like sports is kind of what keeps me like motivated. Like I kind of use that just to like keep me going, and I'm like, okay, like you got to do good in school because you want to be able to play basketball or you want to be able to run track. And for me, it was definitely hard when it was coming to, like, with like all the senior stuff. Like, oh, you have to get this in, you have to get your college stuff ready, you have to write your essays. So like there was a lot going on, and I honestly did get very overwhelmed at one point. But as soon as like I stepped into like into practice, ready to go, I was just kind of, it gave me like that relief, and I was like, okay, like this is where I get to have fun. This is where I get to be with my friends. This is where like I get to like be serious about my sports. But then as soon as I go home, it's like, okay, you got to get your homework done. So it's just like, it's more on your time management. Like if you have like a partial day, like I was lucky enough to get a partial day, like I would spend my after school hours like home doing homework, or like if like I didn't have homework, then I would like spend that time to hang out with a few friends, just because like I didn't have that free time as much as I did like the years before. But definitely gonna be something that you have to continue working on throughout the year, because it's like the more you, I guess, like are, I guess, active and like involved, the more you realize like, okay, like I have to seriously step it up in school if I want to do all this.
Yeah, we have if you give one piece of advice to like McKenna, Chase, those juniors that we have in club and whatnot that are going to be watching this, what would you advice to give them for next year? Because they're going to have to, this is something they're going to have to go through next year. And, same thing. They're both 3-sport athletes, super busy. Hopefully they're going to go deep in playoffs in volleyball and basketball again. So what would be the advice you gave them?
Well, my advice to them, I know that they're all really smart girls. Like, I already know that, like, McKenna and Chase, like, they have good grades and they're pretty good with their time management and stuff. And although, like, I know school for everyone gets, like, a little bit overwhelming, but the only thing I can really say is just, like, try and get everything done in advance. Like, with, like, the whole college and applications, like, my junior summer, I had a list of colleges I wanted to apply to and all that stuff, and I had to start looking in advance of like what they like required, like if they had like an essay and all that stuff. So the more you are like prepared in advance and you kind of get on it like even before like the start like of the opening dates for applications start, then the more you're going to feel relieved, because it's like as soon as that's done and you have them submitted, you don't have to do anything until you start getting them back, and you're like, okay, now I have to start making decisions.
Yeah, I think that aspect of it is really important with time management, is being proactive, and you see deadlines or due dates, and you're not, waiting until the last minute. Like once you get the due date or the assignment, you like start chipping away at it so that you're not like really overwhelmed because it's due and you have to do it all in like a day or whatever.
Yeah, no, it definitely, there's been like a few times where I even caught myself procrastinating a little bit, and it's like, say that was just an essay and I'm like, okay, it's not due until like 2 weeks, like I'll start it next week or something like that. But then like the more I waited, I was like, oh gosh, I wish I got on this a little bit earlier, because it's like now it's like the deadline. I'm like, oh goodness, I still have all this stuff to do.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's funny. Fun stuff.
No.
So go ahead, and we want to know, what was you're getting ready to graduate, go out into, everyone says go out into the real world, but what was your favorite high school moment? Could have been sports related, could have been not sports. What was your favorite moment?
Okay, if I were just to go off of this year, because I mean, there's obviously for this group of like seniors, we had like a lot of our high school years taken away. But looking back on this year, I think it was definitely the state championship and just having that extra time with like those specific girls. Like I think that was really cool, because it's like that was like the only sport I got to like really be with that particular group. And then after like last year, I wasn't really in the sport that much because I was gone, and so it was definitely like that era where it was definitely my most memorable and like favorite moments, as well as like homecoming week for the beginning of the year, because it's like we had like the spirit weeks and everybody was going all out, and like the decorating of my green Jeep and like all the queens riding in it, and like having like Taylor McDaniel drive it. Like it was really fun, because like I think that it just like gave us like another chance just to be like just kids, and like give us like that relief. But
That's awesome. So you kind of hinted at it just now, but you mentioned how your junior season you didn't get to play basketball. You experienced a season-ending injury last year. You want to just kind of give us a timeline of that and kind of like let us know what happened?
Yeah, so the beginning of the year, we had a great cross country season, and I was just like so thrilled with how my season went because I had a new PR. Like my times were dropped by like a minute. Like I was getting quite faster than I had been the previous years, and I was just ready for track at that point. I was like, oh, I'm ready for track. Like, this is going to be awesome, you know? And then basketball started, and I was so excited to have like that season with the girls. Like, I've always loved basketball, it's always been just such a fun sport for me. And I got to go throughout. I joined the season a little bit late, like mid preseason, because of cross country and how far we went. And then I got to participate in preseason all the way up to league. In the very first league game, I ended up having a compound fracture of my tibia and fibula. And at first, the first diagnosis was not exactly like what I wanted to hear. It was like I was told, oh, you won't be able to run for 4 years, walk for a year and a half, and you'll be in a wheelchair for 6 months. And I was like, great, like, okay. So my running career was like practically, I was told that it was over. But then I had like some family friends, which were honestly like such a blessing and like a miracle to like even get in with like a surgeon. And I had a major surgery with a rod and 4 screws, and I was just so bummed to miss out on last year. But just watching how the girls did was honestly like it like made me like really happy for them, that like as much as like I also wished I could be out there with them on the court. But yeah, I mean, last year was definitely not my year, and like missing basketball was also really upsetting. But then when it came to track, that was where I was like the most upset, because it's like track has always been my passion.
Can't run with a broken leg.
Exactly, and you cannot run with a broken leg. But I made sure to like stay involved because I wanted to show like my coaches I was still committed. And like although like I couldn't participate, like I went to every single meet, I traveled with them everywhere, just to
You were
show.
at every single basketball game too.
I was at every single basketball game. I just wanted to show like I was still part of the team, not just because like I was injured, I'm out, like just because of that. Because I feel like that just shows like the I in team. It's like, oh, since I can't play, I'm not gonna be there.
Right. So what was it when you first got that really bad news, when they were like, you're not gonna be able to walk for a year? Like, what was that like? What initially went through your head, right? Because this podcast we're calling Faithful Athletes, and
Yeah.
so how did that affect your faith?
In the beginning, I'm gonna go back to like right when the injury happened. So right in the beginning, as soon as I was on the ground, I tried to get up, and I saw my leg flop, and I was like, okay, that's not good. You know, I could still like I had like an idea, but I was just like really hoping. I'm like, okay, it's okay, like stay calm. So like I just laid there until someone came and helped me. And then my mom and all of them, like I got carried out to my mom's car, and we went to the emergency room. And while I was waiting there, I didn't know what to expect. Kind of like I already knew that it wasn't good, and I knew that there was no way that it was just like a little sprain or anything, because it was like my whole leg was not good. So I ended up. Sorry, my phone.
Your phone.
It was really bugging me. So after the x-rays, and I finally got into the room after being in the waiting room for like I think it was actually like 3 hours.
In the waiting room?
Yeah, like
it's the worst. When I broke my arm, it was the same thing.
yeah,
Sitting in the waiting room for like 2 hours, like
Exactly.
with broken arms, sitting there like,
I know.
hello,
With
it's
the-
broken. It doesn't take a doctor to tell.
I know, you're like, I know it's broken. Yeah, and like they had the wheelchairs, but they didn't have anything to like hold your leg up, so we all took turns like holding my leg like this.
Oh my
I was like
gosh.
leaning over, yeah, and I was in like a little cardboard splint, but
Yeah, because
anyways,
that does a lot. A little
I know.
cardboard splint.
I'm like, it was great.
Good
but
luck. Here you go.
I'm like, I can go home, right? Yeah, no. So as soon as I got into like the actual room, the doctor came in and told me, and I had not cried yet. Like I didn't cry when I broke it. I didn't cry like I felt the pain, but I just was like, I just had that slightest bit of hope, just being like, oh yeah, you're gonna be in a cast for like a couple weeks and you'll be good, you know. But when he came in, I immediately started bawling when he told me that, just because I was like, oh gosh, like that little bit of hope, I just felt like I lost it. But then after, I was like, okay, obviously like God has a plan for me, because like I just remember like on the car ride there, I was just conversing my thoughts with God, and like I was just like wondering like, okay, why did this happen? Like why did this happen to me? Like what is going on? Like I've already been planning to run track in college since I was in like 8th grade, and like I was like, this is like could be the end of this. Like I didn't know what to expect, but I was like, okay, no. Obviously, he has a plan for me. This is like going to make me stronger. I know that there's going to be a reason, like a better outcome than like what there might have been before. Like maybe this will be like what pushes me harder. And honestly, it has been. But I was really just like confused in the moment. But as soon as I was able to get that surgery and stuff, I was like, okay, he just knew that I needed a break. Like, I knew that there was a lot going on with school and sports. Like, maybe I just needed this little rest, like, even though it wasn't the most pleasant rest, I just needed that time off. So now that I'm back, I've realized, like, okay, my time from last year with cross country, it dropped. Like, I got faster there. I did even better than I had been in the years before with basketball. And now, like, I'm just hoping for the same outcome with track. I feel like it's something that's pushing me. And although there are still hard times where I'm like, okay, this is killing me, my leg's hurting, I just know, okay, you got to keep pushing through it because, like, God had, like, wanted you to. He wants to see you be strong.
Wow, I think that's a really cool reminder because as athletes, even just in, like, normal everyday life, I think a lot of times we can get stuck in that, like, why did this happen, or why did God allow this to happen, where ultimately we know, like, the Lord doesn't will bad things to happen to us. I think naturally, as the fact that we live in a fallen world, like, we're vulnerable to that. Like, the Lord might allow things to happen to us, but they're not from him. And he ultimately is going to use the bad to bring good.
Exactly.
And so we can get caught up in the why me, why did it happen, instead of focusing on, like, okay, Lord, well, how are you going to use this bad thing for my ultimate benefit, my ultimate good?
Exactly. And I feel like it was also like a pretty good reminder because it was like we as like people take things for granted sometimes, and like we just forget of like those like every like day like blessings, like
Sure.
the fact of being able to walk, or like the fact of being able just to like see or hear, like things that not every person is granted with.
Right.
And it's like as soon as that was like taken away from me, I was like, wow, like I really took my sports for granted. Like I really took like this like everyday thing that I like used every day like as like for granted, like I've already said. But it was just like almost like an eye opener. I was like, okay, well, like now like I gotta like really push it. Like I had to really relearn how to walk. Like I had to like I was definitely struggling in like the mentality part when it came to all of that, but like I just knew like, okay, there's gonna be a better outcome. Like he has something planned out.
That's awesome.
You mentioned that you have felt really hopeless in the beginning. How did the Lord really, like, how did he come for you in that time?
During that time, I spent a lot of like the time like praying. Like I was at home a lot, so, and all my friends were pretty busy. I had some of them like visit me every now and then, but when I was by myself, I spent a lot of the time like praying and just like kind of just like knowing that like even though I felt like there wasn't hope, like I knew that like the Lord, like he knew like he had something going for me. Like it wasn't like that this was like the end of my path. And like say that I wasn't even able to do sports this year, like there was a reason for it, like maybe I was going to be some amazing singer or something like that one day. I probably wasn't, but but I just knew that like I couldn't just lose that hope. And I remember talking to my mom, and then there was a lot of tears and a lot of like I guess like negativity sometimes from me, but she like would also remind me like, okay, Kadyn, like you gotta like take this and put it into something else. Like I had to figure out different ways to like use this time to find other things like within myself. Like I did a lot of writing. I went like as soon as I was able to drive again, but I couldn't really walk. But it was just because it was my left leg, so I could drive. But I would go out to the lake and bring my Bible. I would read my Bible. I would read books. Like I just spent all that time just reconnecting myself with like my past self before like my sports and before I got too caught away in things. And I feel like that part of me, like as soon as that was brought back, like I was like, okay, like he's giving me hope again. Like he doesn't want me to feel like I was hopeless. Like he didn't want me to feel that way.
Yeah, and I think that's a cool reminder as well, because as athletes, I think we sometimes have a tendency to like see our value or our self-worth tied to how we perform. And so I think it's important to know that, like, while we have a passion about our sport, like we're competitors by nature, like we want to do well. It's important to know that like our worth isn't directly related to that. Like we're more than our sport. You know, we have a greater purpose. And so I don't know, it's a cool reminder for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. 'Cause I know for like a fact that like I was that year I was being very critical on myself, and I was criticizing like everything. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm doing so bad in basketball. Like I'm sure you could ask the girls that are gonna be watching this. They're gonna be like, yeah, she was like that. She was pretty hard on herself. But I think even this year I was still hard on myself. But I feel like I also took it to the point where I'm like, okay, like it's not the end of the world. Like
Right.
there's still going to be more to come. Like you're going to make progress, you're going to continue, and like just because you had a bad game or like a bad meet, like it doesn't mean like you're doing bad. It's just progress. Like you're going to see like improvement every single day, even on the bad days.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's almost like, it sounds like what you're saying is that, you know, the Lord really used this injury to also like regrasp your attention and putting your focus back on mainly Him. You know, and that's something too. I think we forget is that when like everything happens for a reason. Like God you didn't break your leg as punishment,
No.
but you broke your leg because maybe he desperately wanted to have fellowship with you again, to remind you that like, hey, I'm your number one priority. I need to be number one in your life. And so with that being said, do you think, was there ever any bitterness towards the Lord? You know, because I have definitely been in experiences where I've been like, really, did you just, like, why would you do that to me? Like all prideful as if like I deserve something great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I know that I feel like everybody has at least had like a little bit of bitterness to him, but I definitely did question a lot why, like I said earlier, like why did this happen, you know? But then within like, I think honestly took me like like the first like couple days. Like there was still times where I was like hard, but like I was more hard on myself rather than the situation.
Yeah.
But I feel like my first times of like bitterness towards him was probably like the first few days where I was like, okay, why did this happen to me? And I honestly look back and I regret that, because I was like, okay, like now looking back, I'm like, I wish I never questioned you, because I knew like I should have known, because I had that like thought in my head just back there being like, okay, he has a plan for you, but just like those overpowering thoughts almost took over.
Right.
And it's like, I feel like that comes natural to a lot of people, but it's just like, sometimes you just have to remind yourself and be like, okay, like don't do that. Like he has a plan. You can't like think that, like you can't think that he doesn't know what he's doing. And it's like not saying that he's like, okay, yeah, Kadyn, go break your leg and this is what's gonna happen. Like no, it was just like more like, okay, like this is just gonna be a reminder. This is going to make you stronger, and it's like whether you believe it or not, it will, you know?
Do you think it's fair to say that if you hadn't experienced what you experienced, that the loss you experienced in the section game would have looked different? If you hadn't gone through that feeling of complete hopelessness and battled back to the point where you were not only walking, but you were the starting point guard in the state championship game, you know, do you think that you would have had the ability to just be like, no, we're that confidence of like, you know, we can't feel hopeless now because we still have the state playoffs to be in?
I honestly never thought of that, but I think that honestly could be a good like play in that. Like I feel like that had a big role in that, because I noticed that once like one person portrays like how they feel, a lot of people like like grasp onto that, and like they interact like they make the same appearance on how they feel. They'll be like, okay, like they'll have that positive mindset. And for me, when I was walking out of that, like, yes, I was like, of course, it wasn't like I was super happy about losing. You know,
Right.
I wasn't like, yay, we lost. But, like, it was more like, okay, that's okay. Like, we still have more games to come. Like, this isn't the end for us. And that could have a big role in that, because at first I was like, okay, I was told I wasn't going to be able to run, and, like, all that, like once someone told me that, that almost impact how I felt. So, like, when you're getting told, like, the negative things, and, like, you're already, like, expecting the worst, then it's like sometimes that just, like, you lose yourself in that moment. And, like, but when you start out with a positive and you turn it into a positive from being a negative to a positive, like, that changes the whole way you plan, like, your outcome. Almost like you're not being like, okay, we lost, we're not making it back to state. Like, it's more like, okay, we lost, but, like, we have another game and we're going to win that game, you know. You have to, like, create a positive for the outcome to be positive.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, and even you mentioned the start of this track season was a little rough for you.
Still is.
Still is. We're getting there.
We're getting there, though.
But, you know, share with us how your injury has really helped just your mental state and understanding, you know, when you're not performing well. How has your injury affected the way you think now when you're not performing well?
Well, I mean, honestly, sometimes I feel like just being injured for me now, like, I'm like, okay, like, I don't want it to ever seem like an excuse, you know, like, just because I was injured, you know, but at the same time, it's not like I'm trying to use it as an excuse, because there are, like, certain factors, like, of where my surgeon has even told me, like, okay, like, your hamstring's never going to be the same. It's always going to hurt, like, when you run and when you do things, or, like, when you lift up your leg, and it's just, like, something you're going to have to deal with. And, like, with, like, the trauma areas of the surgery, there's always going to be pain there and aches, and, like, some days are worse than the others. So it's like I never really know what to expect. But honestly, I feel like each sport, it was different for me. Like, at first for cross country, we'll start with that. For cross country, I was like, wow, I'm really bad at running. Like, this is not good. But then after, I was like, okay, I also just got back from being out for almost 9 months or more, I guess. And I am just starting to run again. So it's like, I can't just expect to be, like, good like that again without putting in the work that I used to. So when it came to the end of the season, after watching, like, all, like, how much my time would drop each meet, and, like, all my practices, like, how much I would work for it and stuff, like, I've noticed that I went from running, like, a 22-minute 3-mile all the way down to, like, low 19. And, like, that's a huge difference when you're running in cross country, running 3 miles. And then for basketball, it was more like I was more paranoid, and I was more like, okay, I cannot put pressure on my left leg. I can't jump off it. I can't run close to that wall. And I was more holding back mentally just by the, like, scarceful thoughts of, like, the injury happening again, when I was just like, okay, this is going to happen again. But I kind of got carried away with thinking that. But once I got more comfortable on the floor, the more I was on the court, the more that I was just ready to be out there and be like, okay, I'm giving out my all. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, it was, like, more of, like, a one-time eye-opener thing, you know, and it was just a coincidence, you know.
What was it like playing in that gym that you did break your leg in? Because I know you had to go back at least one more time to play in that gym this year.
Yeah, so that game was not the best feeling. I walked into the game, like, the gym, and I had gotten a few, like, comments by, like, parents that have kids there, and, like, there was just, like, those negative things, like, oh, don't break your leg again, like, people, like, you know, it's just, like, not the best sportsmanship, you know. And, like, having, like, people do that to, like, just, like, a 17-year-old girl, you know, you, like, at first you're just like, oh, wow, like, now I'm scared, you know. And it's like, I already was a little paranoid because I'm, like, looking at the wall, I'm like, yep, that's where it happened. But I was definitely scared. I remember during the national anthem, I had, like, my hand on my heart, and I was standing there, and I was just like, I could feel my heart pounding and pounding. I was shaking. There was, like, tears in my eyes just because of, like, the anxiety, and I was just really scared. But I would look around at my girls, and then they're like, oh, it's okay, you know. And I even had a girl from the other team who came up to me, and she's like, hey, like, how are you doing? I know this happened to you. And it was the first girl that had actually been nice to me about that situation on that team. And they were like, I just want to check in on you, like, it's going to be okay. And, like, from that moment on, I was like, okay, you're right, it's going to be okay. Like, I'm just getting too, like, much in my thoughts. I'm overthinking. So, my performance there, like, definitely started out a little bit rusty just because I was scared. But once I got more into the game, I was like, I'm fine. And, like, you could definitely see, like, a moment of where I almost, like, clicked. And, like, I was like, it's fine. Like, let it go.
Yeah. And again, there you just mentioned that aspect of that team. You know, they had your back, your team.
Yeah.
You know, they were holding it together for you. Waiting for you to snap out of it, and they were encouraging in that. You know, that's awesome.
That group's pretty awesome.
Speaking to FCA, this is our first school year, having an FCA club. For those who don't know, it's Fellowship of Christian Athletes. What have you seen as far as, like, in terms of how do you feel like having this club on campus at Bret Harte? You know, we've really consistently had, you know, like 25 students every Monday at club. What impact do you think that has made overall, like, on the Bret Harte campus?
Honestly, I feel like for a lot of the people that are, like, in the club, like, consistently and, like, are always, like, there committing their time to that, it has made a huge impact on them. I feel like I remember, like, there's been many times, but when I'm, like, walking out and I would, like, hear, like, just, like, the kids behind me be like, wow, you know, like, oh my gosh, that, like, I never thought of it that way. Like, even some of my friends that have gone and stuff, like, they're like, wow, like, that changes my, like look on, like, how, like, I've seen these things before. Like, having, like, those people come in and talk to us, and, like, the prayers, and, like, just, like, the little, like, conversations we have, and, like, those connections that we bring, like, for, like, within every sport, you know. I feel like there was, like, a big, like, role on how, like, they're, like, now seeing it. They're like, okay, like, I know how I could better myself. And I feel like there's a lot of times where they're like, okay, like, this is going to be, like, the next time I'm playing, like, I'm going to make sure that I do this and I don't act this way. And I feel like that kind of, like, makes them be a better role model and, like, be a better, like, bigger person in our small school, you know?
For sure. Definitely.
Yeah, so one last question for you before we wrap it up. But
Okay.
if you could do one more thing for Christ at Bret Harte this year, if you could plan one event, hold one gathering, one meeting, one this, one that, whatever it is, what would you want to do? Like, how would you want to leave your mark on that Bret Harte campus if you could do one more thing?
Honestly, I've been thinking about that. That's a hard question, but I don't know if I would necessarily, like, just do it on, like, an event. Like, I would more, like, want just, like, everybody to feel, like, more connected and, like, just, like, leave, like, almost a message. Like, I wouldn't want to, like, gather, not that I wouldn't, like, I mean, I would totally want to gather everyone together, but I know that's hard to do. But, like, just to have, like, a message, just to, like, let them know that, like, to never give up. Like, do not let, like, the hard, like, things in life, like, impact you more than the positives, and just know that there's always going to be, like, a good outcome, and, like, there's going to be like, people for you. Like, I want them to know that there is positivity, like, even in the negatives. Like, if I could just make, like, a big impact on someone, like, any person, like, it could be a person that doesn't even know who I am, just to leave them, like, with a message that just to lighten up their day. Honestly, that's all I would do.
There's always light in the darkness.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just have to look for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you want to leave that hope.
Like, I want to leave the hope that, like, when they feel hopeless.
Yeah, exactly. That's so awesome. You know, it can feel hopeless in high school, and I just always remembered, like, when I was in high school there, like, as a Christian athlete, it can be lonely.
Yeah.
Like, it can be rough, and it can be really tempting to just give up. And so,
Yeah.
that idea of hope, I think, is is very important. And I think that's ultimately why we felt so strongly about interviewing you, is because that's what your story is about. Your story is about hope. You know, you were put in a situation that was completely hopeless, and, you know, God met you in arguably one of your darkest, most hopeless times, and reminded you that you can have hope, you can have true hope, because there's a lot of manufactured hope, there's a lot of fake hope, but he reminded you that you could have real hope if you just stayed close to him, if you had a relationship with him, if you read your Bible, prayed with him, and had that developed that relationship. And then you were able to take that hope and you were able to spread that. You know, I 100% believe that, you know, you're not on that team, then they don't pray before games. Not that the other girls wouldn't do it, but, you know, you were one of those, as a senior, you were one of the leaders. As the point guard, you were a leader on that team. And so you felt that the Lord was telling you to do that, and you did it, you know. And so a lot of those things I don't think happen if you don't go through that situation. You know, you might not have the hope to come back from losing the section game and then go win a state game, a state championship, you know. And so the Lord used that hopeless situation in your life to really not just affect you, but affect everybody around you, you know. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's such a cool testimony too, of like not letting the struggles define you, but using those as a means to spread hope to other people. You know, it's not just like, oh, I had this horrible thing happen to me, but it's like, no, like I had this horrible thing happen to me and I didn't have hope, but like I stayed close to the Lord and was able to come out on the other side of it. So you're able to come out on the other side of it too. Like if I can do it, you can do it. So I think that's a really cool example of your heart for bringing people together and encouraging them too. So.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, and you guys said, like high school's never easy. And I feel like even for anyone that isn't an athlete, like just to have like that connection and just like be reassured with that hope, like I know for a fact sometimes it just feels like you're alone, but like truly you are never alone. Like he is always looking over you, and like you could turn around any corner and I'm sure that like just like a smile from another person or just to like say one thing, like it's going to make like an impact on their day. And like I would want anybody to be able to reach out to me. Like even if they don't know me, if they were to just say something to me, I would respond, and I would make sure like just that way it's not like they're just speaking to a wall, you know?
Right.
Like just to have like that slightest bit of like reassurance, I feel like definitely helps them. It makes a difference.
Awesome. Well, that's about all the time we have. You got to get to track practice, and so do I. So.
What time is it? Oh,
awesome.
I'm good.
Well, thanks for
joining
us.
Well,
Kadyn.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Any last thing you want to say to everybody? Or
Bye.